Hi, I'm Cliff Heger, and this is The Tasters. The German woman went to the village next to the Hitler bunker. She was chosen for a secret mission. Every day she should eat Führer's food to make sure that she is not angry. The film, based on the right events, begins in November 1943 in the press. The German girl, Rosa, comes to the small village of Pars, where the parents of her husband, Gregor, live. The girl died in the bombard of Berlin, and her house was destroyed. The youngest daughter gets up with her daughter in the room of her son, who was located somewhere in most Soviet Union. At dinner, the guests ask why the Reich soldiers entered the local forest. Domestic father, explains that the chief hopper of Hitler, fortified with a bunker called Lero Wolf, is there. The guests also explain that due to the lack of men who came to the front, the girl who worked as a secretary should now work with her hands. Severe physical work on the outskirts brutalizes a person. However, on the morning day, soldiers come to the house to completely invite Rosa to the state edition of Black Maroon, without explanation why. 6 other young women are already in the back. They are taken in the surrounded Wehrmacht building, where they invited one by one for a medical audit. They even tested their blood. After these procedures, women are invited to the established table, where they constantly offer lunch. Suppose due to a lack of food during the war, they do not need warning. Girls attack food with enthusiastic appetite despite the management of officers. After that, they should wait an hour to check if they were attacked. This is the guest to test the combination of Führer's evening. The guest is sure, but you never know what can happen. Women are surprised in this way. One even tries to affect the blood with 2 fingers, but the officer will stop it. Frightening guests are waiting for the mortal part. After the confirmation that the test subjects are in order, the guest gentleman calls the bunker so that they have a lunch from the Hitler. The girls are sent home. At dinner, Rosa tells her younger father that she was chosen to work as a tester for the Führer with a salary of 200 marks. A simple question: eat well and hoping that this time no one will try to threaten the artist. The next day, the situation is repeated. Fearing with the fear of death, the girls are valiantly eat everything. During the rest between dinner and dinner, women rest in the apartment. There Rosa meets Lenny, a young woman who tells her about others. They grew up in the same village and even know her husband. Everything except Alfred, who also came because of something. Rosa promises to give one of her capital clothes to her new friend, who surprises the girl ruler without words. December 1943. Having learned about daily foods and no longer afraid of Herb, the testers even talk with the Hitler's personal chef during the inspection. He explains why the Führer became a vegetarian. After a visit to the apartment, he was very surprised at what happened there, including blood pools. Rose receives a letter from her husband. He writes that he will return to a festive vacation. Rose is happy to wait for his visit. I am sympathetic. She even fulfills the promise of her lazy and gives her one of her capital clothes. Rosa shares her joy with her colleagues in the culinary business, but they remind her that her husband should still wait. She decorates Christ's tree, and in the morning she hears the sound outside. Going into a snowy apartment, she sees 2 soldiers. They brought the letter saying that Gregor had disappeared on the Eastern Front. This news annoys a Rose that does not want to get out of the back, but the Wehrmacht soldiers could no longer worry about her will from Brandenburg. They take a Rose from the back to work, to get food in the name of the Führer's safety. At the arrival, the girl begins to fight with one of her colleagues when she reminds her that she explained to her about the opportunity to leave her back. The soldiers pull out the girls, not forgetting to give them a rack, after which they return to the table to complete their usual tasks. But even there, Rosa destroys the rules, capturing a portion of a person that is prohibited. If you mix all the dishes and drink yourself, it will be more difficult to determine what exactly will drink. After breakfast, she closes herself in the bedroom and screams. Of all her colleagues, only Alfred comes to support her. In May 1944, the Führer left a temporary day for wolves, causing Delicious Daily to come on the weekend. Rose, from old habits, writes letters to her husband, so he pulls out his emotions. Returning to work, women will meet Lieutenant Albert Siegler, who was appointed head of service. When Siegler sends them home early because dinner ends, Rosa and several colleagues will go to visit one of them, Heike. She owns a store in which the young man, the name of Ernst, is too young to be exported to the army, also works. During another vacation, a Rose, on the road to the bathroom, hears music coming from Siegler's office. She is approaching to listen, so the officer will catch her. The woman states that before the war, she ripened in the choir in the city before moving here to her native land to be with her husband, who was lost at the front. That evening, after deeds, the Rose lies on the bed when she sees the luminous light from the outside. Having looked, she sees the German officer Siegler under the window. Without cession, he leaves. During another food, Heike lost her appetite due to poor health. However, she should eat. Lieutenant Siegler personally holds a glass. That evening, Rosa sees the light out the window again. The officer came to her house again. Seeing that these visits do not happen by chance, she looks at him as he goes into the office. She carefully prepares for the next visit of the officer, dressing in her best clothes. When he signals with his flashback, she answers with a light bulb, then leaves outside. Outside, Siegler pauses to her with kisses, and she answers. They go to the tower to do something that made the films of German films known in the world dozens of years later. In the evening, Rosa and others notice that Heike is non-residential, almost finished to eat. She asks to go to the toilet. The soldier will take her out, but reminds her that food should remain inside. That evening, the woman admits that she died of stress, and this is a rather sad situation because her husband goes to war. She must somehow explain the situation when he returns. Alfred replies that she can perform an abortion with impromptu products. She was a nurse before the war. Another question is that abortication is unprofitable for death in the country. The Fuhrer needs faithful soldiers. Rose spends nights with Siegler, gradually becoming closer to him. In addition, when her mother says that she saw her son in dreams, she is deceived by a sin for such a lie. Especially so, since her lover is also married. Another time, Alfred says that he set the time for surgery. Rosa and Lenny come to give moral support. Fortunately, everything goes well. The Rose gradually becomes closer to Alfred, especially during a tour of nature, when young Lenny jumps along the river. After another breakfast, the Rose gradually becomes sick. She stinks right there in the room. Sequentially, two girls stink that they ate because everyone had a different dish. Those who are not injured are sent to another room. The kitchen is calling the main kitchen to end the Chitlers' breakfast. Soldiers transport vacant women to the hospital to see how it will end. After resting on the bed, all three come to their senses and return to the kitchen. There they continue their work, checking new dishes, ready to quickly replace the destroyed food. Terrible women refuse to eat, so the soldiers are returning to convincing standards, threatening machine weapons to correct them. The Rose is forced to make the first decision. During the shot, talking about what happened, Rosa asks the rhetorical question when it all ends. Alfred tells her that German soldiers, lost from a strong shot from the Red Army, are in a threatening retreat. But in Germany, the authorities keep this under rapeseed so as not to threaten national morality. Lieutenant summons Rosa comes to his office. He says that he was worried about her but could not do anything. If he destroyed their attitude, everything would only become worse. Despite the fact that this explanation is not very pleasant to the girl, she meets him that evening. Siegler tells her that the threatening people were not because of the threatening, but because of the acid that fell into dessert. This is July 7th, 1944. In their free time, Rosa and Alfred enjoy swimming on the river and conversations. Together with Siegler, he reveals a terrible secret to the officer. Once he wakes up with horror, he dreams that he again worked in a concentration campaign and was forced to shoot at his younger. Rosa suddenly realizes that Siegler did very terrible things, killing ghosts, including women and children. This awareness fills her with resentment at the lieutenant. On the 20th, while relaxing, women will hear an explosion in the forest. White resin rises from the horse, assuring that this is a ghost bomb. The soldiers force them to hide in the building and then send them to the same. Home, Rose learns from her father that the trickler is dead, killed in the explosion, which means that she should no longer risk herself with his dinner. However, that evening, she will hear the radio. Having got along in an attempt to kill during the Valkyria operation, the Fuhrer informed the country about improper speculation. The next attempts to kill in the ANMELSE, secret regulations were dramatically strengthened. Tastier cannot go home anymore. They are in the same building where dinners are held. After the position of women in bunk Beatty, the trickler, having upset, goes to the explosion, realizing that he cannot simply pull out the Rose on the date more. During the day, the officer invites her, but she says that this is the end between them. So Sora runs a Hitler. He even threatens the girl, but not for a long time. If something happens to her, she must explain herself in length. In August 1944, two things are happening. In November, in the Great Army, the atmosphere in the base is oppressive. The rock of the tragedy invades the Nazis. They are systematically preparing to destroy all documents. The murder is pursued by tasters, rank 2. Later at night, Rosie cannot sleep. She goes out the window where Alfred drinks. Her squad states that in addition to illegal abortization, she has another sinful pleasure. In fact, this is Edna, a woman who secretly left the deportation to a concentration campaign. From the end of an unknown approach, Hitler creates his own day for wolves. Tasters fight off as necessary and allowed home. How they pack, one of the girls called an officer. Later, she never joins others in a backpack. At home, her mother wife, saving the money that her daughter worship received, advises her to go to India. She and her husband are waiting for the return of their son. It remains faulty. However, it is problematic to leave. The Wehrmacht prohibits all the trances for its own use, and there is no other choice. The appearance of a German patrol soldiers are looking for Jelfrid to arrest her for improper abortication. One of her friends finally let her go. After the inspection of the house, doors and windows, and find anything, the Nazis, like the hopes of the Fuhrer's victory, disappear without the highway at night. During the day, the Rose returns to the building where the soldiers actively destroy all the documentation. The less evidence, the shorter the scene. The girl asks Lieutenant Siegler for help in arranging her place by train in Berlin. He asks in response where her Jewish squad is. Her real name was revealed. He also knows that she knew about abortization, but opened it. The officer organizes to go to the girl. That evening, Rosa leaves the house and runs to the light in the village. Siegler is waiting there. He tells her to inform the station in the morning. Imagining himself a volunteer, he will put her a good word. When he leaves, the girl calls Jelfrid from the stocks of work peace. As in Mimi with Hanslandia, Rosa is pursuing the enemies of Reich. She offers her friend that they are leaving together in the morning. In the morning, the owner's father will bring girls to the Telegin station. Rosa madly tells the officer that they are volunteers organized by Siegler. Having managed in the right bus, they will see the doctors with whom Jelfrid begins to help. After all, she is a nurse. The Rose will notice Ziegler through the window. He came to catch the departing. The girl captures her friend and goes to another exit. But the officer pursues them and asks Jelfrid to stop. Rose protects her friend with her body, but when she tries to leave, the lieutenant kills her with a good shot. The Rose rotates over the body of Jelfrid, deceiving her friend. Siegler kills her from her body to throw her into a tram, going into the capital at the last moment. To the rhythmic tram of the wheels, the Rose looks at the blessed hands of her friend. The film ends with a small historical account of Margot UAC, a prototype of a rose, the only survivor of 14 delicious Adolf Hitler. He